Ik zit er al in, maar... dat is niet... Maakt niet uit.
Want dit is Innovation Augustus, dus het is Innovation 2 Teams channel.
Nee, toch één?
Nee, 2.
Nou, dan zitten we allemaal in een probleem. Dit is Innovation Room 1, 1A.
Ja, dat dacht ik ook nog.
Ja, want dan moet ik nog 2 ruimtes namelijk gaan omwisselen.
Oh,
ja, dat is wat ik zei, van het is heel onhandig om 1A en 1B te geven.
Ja, dit was ook echt 1A, maar op een bepaalde manier in de schema's van de mensen is het ingedraaid terechtgekomen.
Ja, dan moet ik dus in 2 ruimtes gaan wisselen. Dan zal ik even op en neer moeten. Tja. Dat is een beetje lastig.
Ja.
Ik ben hier even checken wat allemaal online is. Tja, 1, 2. Los het op?
Hoe snel denk je dat je het ongerust kan krijgen? Of heb je al liever dat we de zaal omwisselen?
Nee, dat duurt 5 minuten.
Oh, 5 minuten. Dat starten we gewoon 5 minuten later.
Dus dat wil zeggen dat ik heb nu 1 gelogd op 1A en dan moet dan
1A moet naar de ruimte van 1B en 1B naar de ruimte van 1A.
Ik loop even mee.
Dus dit wordt meeting 1B.
Ja.
Oké.
Oké, microfoons.
Die kunnen voor, die doen het, maar ze moeten niet beginnen, want ik ben er niet bij. Dus.
Nee, maar dan zeggen we even dat het langer duurt. Ja, de livestream moeten gaan omwisselen, want de kamers zijn door elkaar, zitten in het verkeerde kanaal. Het duurt een paar minuten, als je dat alvast wil announcen.
Okay. Hi everyone. Thanks for joining this speech round. The live stream has to switch some things around, so it will take a couple of minutes. Already some extra information. I think all teams should already know this, but it's 4 minutes for the pitches, 10 minutes for discussions, and a couple minutes for switching around. So make sure you stay within that time, please. And just to recap, the first team that will be pitching will be Biosensing Team Twente, followed by UC Team, and after that, BioLink LX, and then last but not least, TrueSense. So that's what's going to happen. The jury members are here in the front. 1 jury member will join online. So I hope you're all prepared. Let's return to previous display settings in 15 seconds. Oh. Okay, just check if it doesn't switch off in 15 seconds. We gaan nu ook de tijd bij het afkomen. Okay. Livestream is aan het omwisselen, maar daarna kunnen we beginnen.
beeld.
Hij gaat verder goed.
Ja, nu denk ik wel. Alleen het Teams krijgen we niet op dat scherm. Maar ja, dat is dan maar zo. Denk ik. Ja. Want het enige is dat zij dan hem zien, maar hij heeft helemaal geen plaatje. Zeg maar, hij heeft toch alleen zijn open, zijn letters. Dus dan zet ik het scherm gewoon uit, toch? Even. Ik zet deze uit, hè. Even kijken of er dan daar niks gebeurt. Ja, dit is hij. Ik ben jury.
Super. Het kan nog even gestuurd.
Ja, je mag ons gewoon vragen van iedereen, maar eerst de jury en dan het publiek. Als er vragen zijn, want we hebben dus maar 10 minuten, dus als de jury die vult, dan...
Ja, helder.
Wat hè? Hier, Jimmy. Ja, volgens mij wel. We zitten nu in de goede. Die klikker mag je ook in je Teams geven. Die is als het goed.
Ja, die hebben we net getest.
Moet jij of de mensen die deze microfoon krijgen? Of dat zij headset krijgen?
Deze, nee, microfoons.
Maar allebei? 2? Nee toch? Of hou ik deze voor de vragen voor jury? Dat denk ik.
Nee, ik zeg, pak hem dan loop ik er wel anders.
Oh nee,
Sommige
jury.
mensen zien met 2.
Ja, dat klopt, maar je hoort het dus wel door elkaar. Oké. Better? No.
Mute yourself.
Yeah. Wait. Oké. En nu? Ja.
Okay. Well, last but not least, everything is set. So if the biosensing team Twente pitchers can come to the stage. If you want people at home to be able to see you, make sure to talk in the microphone and stand in front of the camera. Maybe, yeah, sure. Do you want both microphones? I'll take one for questions later.
Okay.
And I
switch the slides.
with the clicker, I will also keep track of time, so it's important to stick to the
Okay.
4 minutes. Good luck.
And can we invite like the rest up for the questions later?
Sure.
To
Okay,
answer.
perfect.
Okay. Do you want this?
Oh yeah.
Like you can give it to me when it's my turn.
Yeah. I don't know which hand to use. Okay. Okay. Hello everyone. We are the Biosensing Team 20, and today we'll talk to you about our device, the AkiSens. So, first of all, the AkiSens is an aptamer-based electrochemical biosensor, which, as we all know, detects the concentration of creatinine in the context of acute kidney injury. So, let's start from the outside. This is the final device. It's there, but we'll not show it. It has a door on the side from which the sample can be inserted into a vial, and from there it'll be connected to the rest of the components in the device. It also has an interface where the creatinine concentration value is displayed, and at the same time, like a concentration over time graph is also shown. It has a control board where the flow can be adjusted and other specific actions can be performed. Now, if we zoom in, we get to the chip. The chip is where the electrochemistry happens. It's made of 2 interdigitated gold electrodes on a glass wafer, and the microfluidic channels are made in PDMS, and they are made to optimize the surface area for the electrochemistry, like the electrochemic reaction to happen.
Yes, thank you. And now I will tell you a bit more details about our electrochemistry. So I will start with the surface. We have a gold surface, and we are using aptamers, which have a tile group which has a high affinity towards our gold surface. And to increase the surface area, we decided to use gold nanoparticles, and these were flown into our system. And whenever the target was entered into our system, it would bound to our aptamers. And because of our redox group, which is a methylene blue group, the structure of the aptamers would change, and they would bound closer to the surface, and therefore the distance would change, and we would measure a change in the current. This change was measured using square wave voltammetry, which has the current against the voltage in the results. And these results we obtained. So when we look at figure 12, which is the figure on the left side, we can see a very clear peak at minus 0.45, which shows us that when our concentration increases, this peak increases as well. And then this current was measured, and these values were used into our concentration curve, or into our calibration curve. And these values were then used using linear regression to be able to obtain with the same chip, so it would be continuous. And therefore, we would be able to determine the unknown concentrations with using this calibration curve. And I want to thank you all for listening, and let me know if you have any questions.
Yeah, for the question, if we can invite the rest of the team to come up and help us.
Thank you. First of all, do any jury members have any questions for the Twente's team?
Thank you. Thank you very much for a very nice pitch. The first question I would have is, you used gold and gold nanoparticles as your surface, and that is very likely to work very well in buffer. But how is that performing in a real sample with complex molecules?
Can you go to the functionalization slide? Yeah. So the reason for the gold nanoparticles was to increase the surface area so that the aptamers would have more surface to bind to, and basically it's just like a question of number. Like we could have more aptamers on the surface as well. And that way we would have like an increase in the signal. We didn't really see our results like affected negatively by this. So for us, actually, we saw like an increase in the like peak, basically.
That's very nice. Just to qualify this a little bit more, in the fluids that you are going to measure creatinine in, there's not only creatinine, there are lots of other molecules, and they will go to the surface and potentially they will interfere with the measurements. Have you seen this? What's the plan for that?
Yeah. Yeah, so we were prepared for this question. We we had considered diversity, various anti-fouling agents. These are two alternative functionalization that we tried. Initially, we wanted to go with the one on the right, yes, which is a polymer basically, which, it's called PLL. But eventually we went with the functionalization on the left, which uses MCH. It's a more traditional approach. But when we went to actually test these, this is the MCH, the results from the MCH. It's a the results from the square wave voltammetry during the functionalization process. So the highest peak that you see, like the green one, is like the bare electrode in PBS. And once we bind the aptamers, the peak has a bit of a reduction, but it's still pretty high, the signal can be still read. But once we applied the anti-fouling agent, so the MCH, we see the blue curve. So we saw that all the signal was not passing through. We were not able to read it anymore. And we discussed what to do from this, but eventually we convened that since with the samples that we use are pretty standard, for this competition, it would be out of the scope of our, of the competition as of right now. In eventual future developments, it would be necessary to implement an anti-fouling layer because with different samples, variety within the sample, then it would be necessary. But yeah.
Okay, next question. My name is Sven Ingebrand. I'm from Aachen University. I'm a professor of micro and nano systems. So in your team results document, you did not really discuss the chip you developed. So now I have seen it. Can you detail a little bit more how you did the chip, why it was done like this, and what are the features?
The chip.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, sorry. So we experimented with a couple of different dimensions. So I would say the more accurate representation is the one on figure 5. Mm-hmm. It was a bit hard to decide which dimensions to use because of course we wanted to try to get the biggest surface area for the reaction to happen while at the same time not have too big of a volume for of course the sample to finish. So eventually we tried this composition mostly there was obviously some fabrication limits, so we couldn't get the channels to the PDMS to channels to close because otherwise the bonding would not happen very carefully. But yeah, eventually we opted for these dimensions because after some experiments we would see that the results were pretty we would get a significant, we were able to read this a signal, and at the same time we would have enough sample to flow through, you wouldn't finish before that.
So it's a glass chip with gold and PDMS on top, so very straightforward. But how are the connections done? Yeah, because this is typically the problem, the leaking and putting some fluid connection to it.
Yeah. So. Yeah, I think it can be seen a bit on figure 3. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a bit small, but basically a tube from the sample would get on one of the inlets, and of course there would be an outlet tube that goes to a waste. And these were it was made sure that it was bind because we poured extra PDMS on top, and so we didn't see any leaks with these techniques. We would have basically 2 baking steps of PDMS, one for the whole structure and one inserting the tubes and then adding extra PDMS on top just to seal the tube.
Okay, but to contact it, you need a slow hand and a good operator to really, how do you put the chip in? Chip is put in and then you know, the fluid connections are done by hand. Or-
Mm.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, so, sorry, your question is how we made the connections?
Yes.
So, yeah.
Practically, I
Yeah,
haven't
yeah,
seen the
yeah.
analytical
It's, I
performance.
understand. Yeah, so we would drill holes into the PDMS and then by hand we would put in our tubes. And then, like Katrina was explaining, we would put another PDMS layer around these tubes to make sure there's no leakage. And then from there, yeah, it was pretty
Bake it.
straightforward.
Okay. Okay. Understood. Thank you.
And, probably didn't answer how we put PDMS on the chip. It was after plasma treatment, we literally took them by hand, put together and pressed.
Yeah, but
Yes, that's,
you know-
is that what you meant?
How to put now the next chip? So you do one test, chip is done,
Yes.
and how to put the next chip into your sample? You need the PDMS sealing and all this, or
You repeat the same steps?
with the same chip?
Don't think I understand your question.
Like, we have...
I think we have to move on.
Well, I
All
think
right.
we have to move on.
Leo.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. I'm Leo van IJzendoorn from Eindhoven University. And I would like to ask a question about the reversibility of the binding, because one of the most important aspects of continuous sensing is that you can reuse the chip. And you make a few small remarks in your team results document in which you mention how you do it, but also can you explain it a bit and also explain whether you tested the reproducibility?
Yes, so we first, of course, started off with some literature reviews. And there we saw that with the use of our system, the target and the aptamers can reach an equilibrium with the K on and K off. And so we went with natural unbinding. And we can also see this in our results that when we test with different concentrations, you can see different values that it doesn't at some point get stuck at a high concentration. But we were also testing always starting from a low concentration, going up to a higher concentration of samples.
Okay, so you do not take any special measures, basically. You rely on the basically low affinity, and therefore it is reversible and continuous.
Yes, we rely on the knowledge that we gained.
Do you have any tests of that? I believe you, but...
No, I actually don't think we got to the time to have any results on this. But yeah, from the results we got, we always saw, yeah, so the results that we used for the calibration in the end that we display in the curve were obtained by going from lower concentrations to high concentration to avoid any any influence from lower samples. But we did try, we don't have official results, so yeah, of course, we did try again using the same chips for measurements. We didn't really see any, the results being affected by switching concentrations from lower to higher, but yeah, this is what we showed.
Yes, last question. Okay, reversibility seems to be a bit open, but then let's look at that data. So you said you went from low concentration to high concentration. How do you got from the left data to the right data? Did you look at the peak? Did you do an integration?
So the whole process is moving average filter, which is the result of it is the graph on the left. And then the feature is the maximum signal, difference of maximum signal of the concentration with the baseline on the chip.
So it's really just maximum peak?
Maximum minus baseline on the chip, because
Minus
chips might have
baseline,
might have some drift. So to compensate for that, we had a measurement with zero concentration, a pure serum.
Yeah, because if I look at the light blue, dark orange one, then there seem to be different peaks. So they're kind of a peak shift, and I mean you might average it out. Underlying question then is, what are the error bars on the right?
What is the what?
What would be the error bars on the right? Yeah, because on the right, I mean, that looks nice and linear. If I look on the left, I would say,
well, I guess the difference between, don't look at how it looks to you on the graph, because that's the absolute value. We're using the difference, and I think on that graph you could more or less see that the zero values are lower compared to non-zero. So if you zoomed in on the peak there.
Okay. Okay. So, but then were there different chips, or is it always the same baseline per chip? Because then I can again look at it. The baseline doesn't do much.
But this one had the best results, so that's why it's here.
Okay. Thank you.
No. Yeah, I wanted to add, like, we did test it on different chips, but this is only one. Like, all the results that you see in this graph is the same chip. So they all have the same baseline. Like, it's all there.
Last one.
Yeah. Hi, guys. So very nice presentation. So I just have a very small question. Where do you think that you innovated? So in the whole scheme of so the sensor principle, whether it was the physical transduction, the molecular recognition, what is it that you identified that you innovated beyond the state of the art?
Please, short answer.
Okay, I will keep it brief. We believe that we innovated on that our system is very compact, and we try to make it as optimal as possible by thinking very thoroughly about every component. So we chose a pressure pump, and we chose like the chip width has a design that has the most like optimal and efficient way that we saw fit, and also came through with our experiments.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your presentation. And the next team for the pitch is UCT. Who wants to?
Okay,
Good luck.
Just
Yeah. Good luck.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Eva, and this is my colleague Hansa, and we represent UCT Prague. Approximately 850 million people worldwide suffer from some kind of kidney disease. That means about 1 in every 10 people, and the numbers are still rising. Assessing levels of creatinine, a key biomarker for kidney function, can facilitate early detection and expedite the treatment. Here we present our continuous biosensor, which utilizes enzymes as a molecular recognition part. Combined with an electrochemical detection, using screen-printed electrodes, we aim to provide real-time monitoring of creatinine from interstitial fluid. In our sensor, we are using a free enzyme system comprising creatininase, creatinase, and cercosin oxidase. During this reaction cascade, creatinine is converted with one of the final products being hydrogen peroxide, which is detectable with electrochemical methods. The enzymes have been immobilized using glutaraldehyde in combination with BSA to form so-called cross-linked enzyme aggregates.
So, after acquiring hydrogen peroxide through the enzymatic cascade, we are then able to detect it on the electrode. But for that, we need some kind of reader instrument. Herein comes our potentiostat. Oh, sorry. Here comes our potentiostat. This device is tailored for our need in this biosensor. It can measure simultaneously 2 channels in 2 or 3 electrode setup with a maximal current range being plus minus 500 microamperes and a potential range being plus minus 1 volt. Its resolution for our main detection method, chronoamperometry, at the maximal range is close to 15 nanoamperes. But if we tune it down and decrease the linear range, we can achieve values of approximately 2 to 5 nanoamperes. For the physical transduction, we are using screen-printed carbon-based electrodes modified by rhenium oxide, a redox mediator. In the cyclic voltammograms above me, you can see the results from as received and modified electrodes. Seeing that the reduction peak for the modified electrode has much higher current response than from as the received. With the introduction of hydrogen peroxide into our system, we are getting even higher current responses. Using the data from cyclic voltammetry, we are able to optimize our chronoamperometry, the main measurement. And here you can see results for the detection of hydrogen peroxide created by the enzymatic reaction. And you can see that the difference between the baseline and the lowest concentration of 30 micromoles is approximately 60 nanoamperes. And even with the higher concentrations, we are able to get even lower. Here, approximately with the concentration of 240 micromoles per liter, we are able to reach responses of circa 400 nanoamperes. All this data will then be able to be shown live in our app that we are currently developing. Thank you very much for your attention, and this will be the end of our presentation. We will just quickly invite the rest of our team to arrive. Oh yes, and here in front in the Jari, this is currently our prototype, prototype of our device.
Okay, thank you very much for the nice presentation. I have a question on the enzyme assay. So if I haven't seen the document, so I just saw the pitch. If I see it correctly, you use 3 different enzymes that you kind of glue to the BSA. And my question would be, how can you make sure that this is a reproducible step in a way that I think that if you kind of glue it to the BSA, you might inhibit the enzymatic function quite a bit?
We derived our results based on the HRP model when we used horseradish peroxidase and immobilize it, and we obtained the results that immobilization with BSA gives us better activity than without it.
Okay, so you have tested activity,
yes,
and it remains the same and is also reproducible. Because the other question would be, I mean, maybe mixing 3 enzymes is complex. If one of them doesn't work properly and you have a wrong batch, then you will have huge problems with reproducibility.
Yes, but based on the HRP model, the results were reproducible.
Okay, thank you.
I can go. So it's a very interesting program, and as just said, it feels very complex, so very well done for challenging that. The question I have is, if everything is in solution, right, how does it go into a continuous monitoring? How do you flow things through so that things stay there?
Yes, so in the current setup, we are unfortunately using a commercial external pump. But in the future, we are hoping to use maybe a smaller peristaltic pump that can be in the sensor, or maybe working a bit with capillary forces that we can use for transportation of the sample to the electrodes.
No, thank you. So just so that I understand clearly, you have a liquid of enzymes and a liquid of sample, and you mix these 2 together. And then for the next one, we throw that away and we measure the 2 again.
No, sorry, my mistake. We are using membranes to separate the compartment, basically a bioreactor, where the enzymes are housed. And above it, above the membrane, we have the main flow of the sample. So based on diffusion, we basically get some of the sample into the bioreactor. Then the reaction happens, and again, by the diffusion, it goes back to the main flow, which is then transported to the electrode in the second cartridge.
Okay, so I think it was addressed already. So a 3 enzyme system is very difficult to tune and to optimize and so on. So I have seen here now the hydrogen peroxide detection.
Yes.
Did you also work with the creatinine already? So is this all working together?
With the creatinine in the system, right now I will be speaking with when creatinine was in the solution with just phosphate buffer saline. We are getting small interference of circa 10 nanoamperes reduction in the signal for the first 3 concentrations that we tested, which were 30 to 90 micromoles. Afterwards, it basically stabilizes, and that's as far as we got in this testing.
Yeah, so you mentioned in the document that the reagents came late, and you were able in the last few weeks to really work on it.
Yes, this was kind of part of that. With the creatinine, we tested that. With the human sera, it was a bit more difficult. There is a bit more interferences, a bit more decreasing the signal.
More challenges coming, yes.
But with the human sera, the signal was cut basically close to a half. It was approximately 40 nanoamperes for the lowest concentration.
Okay.
Okay, thank you for your interesting talk. I have a question about the time graphs that you showed also at the end. And the times involved in reaching an equilibrium value for your current are typically, well, something like 1,000 seconds or so. Is that a feasible concept? Because 1,000 seconds is 20 minutes. Is that typical for a measurement time, or is it typical for a regeneration time? Can you maybe explain that a bit?
For the system, it's typical. We are basically working with a flow system, but both the cartridges are basically batch systems. So due to the diffusion, reaching the equilibrium takes a bit longer time. But after talks with clinicians and experts in this field, we found out that detection of the creatinine levels, they don't change that fast at possible other metabolites. So if we get result in maybe once every hour or maybe 2 hours, that's exactly what they need. So in our detection, we didn't really focus on making it as fast as possible.
Okay, that's clear. I have a second question. In your team results document, you talk about improving the sensitivity by using a higher resolution ADC, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
I was a bit puzzled by that. Also, the chip was also, you said it was really tailor-made, or at least tuned to your experiment. Can you maybe tell a little bit about that?
The design is based on STM32 microcontroller with analog circuitry which converts the currents to voltage ranges. And the problem we were getting with the decreased resolution was because the device was prepared before for more general experiments, so the full range was minus 500 to 500 microamperes. So the noise limitation was in the resolution of the ADC. So when we increased the slope of the conversion, so it decreased the range of the current we can measure, the voltage response was the same, but for smaller signals. So it helped us in the way, because the PCB is designed well for the noise interferences. The limitation was just in the ADC because it was a 16-bit ADC, so for as high range of 1000 microamperes, we cannot get the smallest values as small as possible.
Okay. So, but you measure voltage, not because you mentioned chronoamperometry, which I understand.
It is chronoamperometry, but technically you cannot measure the current immediately, so you have to convert it by analog circuitry to voltage, and you measure the voltage.
But is the limitation really the noise, or is it just the range, or is it due to
no, because the signals we are getting, it was less than one microampere, so we can tune it down even more. So no, the limitations in this system, the noise limitations were, there were two noise sources. One of them was the connector of the cable and the screen printed electrode, and the other one was from the resolution of the device. But the device was designed as that the range can be adjusted, so we can scale we can tune the slope of the conversion on the current to voltage. So
okay, well,
for our needs.
Fair enough. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Very quick. Then I asked your question. So what do you think, what is the biggest innovation step you took?
So the biggest innovation might be in our electrode. It was designed, made with a collaboration with a partner university of ours, University of Pardubice. And it uses, as I mentioned, carbon-based material. It's graphene nanoplates, if I remember correctly. And then we also modified by the redox mediator. It itself is a fairly old concept, basically going back to the second generation. But we are thinking that just making it as simple as possible, using kind of newer technologies, and giving our own spin also with the potentials that can go with that we can actually tune to everything that we need. That's the biggest innovation we put into it.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you. The next team is BioLink LX.
This one? To go forward is with this one?
Yes.
Okay. What? Sorry, I don't, you have
Just continue.
Oh, okay, I understand. Okay, should I start or?
Yeah.
Yes, okay. Good morning, everyone. I am Catherine Bittencourt, and today I will be representing BioLink LX, which is a Portuguese team based in Lisbon. So by now, I'm sure that most of you know already how a biosensor works, and we basically have our sample and the biosensor, and when we expose our analyte to the recognition element, we can trigger a response that can give us the amount of analyte that we desire. Put it this way, it seems really simple, right? But actually developing a biosensor takes a really long way, and it depends a lot on how you tackle down the problem. In our case, we started with molecular recognition, where we innovated by developing a novel surface for the detection of creatinine. And so on our first step, we modified an SPE gold electrode with gold nanoparticles. Then we used, on the second step, a polydopamine film, which is a polymer that allows us to increase the internal area and also attach the recognition element. And with the polydopamine film, we also used ethanolamine, which is a blocking agent because it is hydrophobic. Now, on the third step, we binded our aptamer to the polymer. And on the fourth step, since polydopamine does not cover entirely the surface, we might have some gold spots that might allow the entrance of non-desired species. And so we blocked further with another blocking molecule to avoid non-specific absorption. So when we tested our sensor in PBS, what we saw is that since we had a methylene blue probe in square wave voltammetry, what we see is this current response, the A. But when we introduce creatinine into the system, we see that the probe gets near to the surface, and then the electron transfer is faster. And so the signal increases, and now we can detect creatinine. The problem is that when we go to the real metrics, we see the opposite. We see a decrease in current. And this might be due to the fact that we now have more species in solution, and it might be blocking the signal exchange, the electron exchange. Nevertheless, this wasn't adaptive to detect creatinine because we indeed got a valid calibration curve that allows us the detection of creatinine. Now, to process this data and allow healthcare professionals and patients to interpret the data, we had to process the results. And for that, we use our potentiostat that could link through our devices with MATLAB. So in general, our thinking behind the programming is that we first run a square wave voltammetry test, then we take the maximum current value,
Then with this value, we can use the calibration curve and then determine the concentration of creatinine. And if the patient of the health professional desires, they can determine the GFR, which is more clinically relevant. So in here, you have the interface where you can get the creatinine value, then you can estimate the GFR, and if desired, you can introduce your personal characteristics. So in the end, to assemble this all together, we developed a microfluidic system where we have in here our cartridge, which is made out of PLA, which is the little black box that you see in there. Then we have the inlet, the outlet. Then we also have our pump, where we take out the samples, and a reservatory where we store the tested samples. And then we have the battery to turn on the pump. And so in general, what happens is that we introduce the sample with a micropipette. It goes into the cartridge, it gets out with the help of the pump, and it goes into the reservatory. So this is AptiveSense, and we couldn't have made it without our sponsors, of course, my colleagues, and I finally would like to thank you for your attention. Sorry for the unformatting, I think it was a bit unformatted.
First question.
Then I start with it. So, thank you very much for this pitch. Yeah, so, I have a question regarding the whole system design. Yeah,
Okay.
so you have the chip.
Yes.
You use the potentiostat. So all this was done from commercial distributors. And where's the innovation you did?
Yes, okay.
So the surface chemistry, I see it's quite good. Yeah. So and also the sensors seems to work. But maybe you can put in your own words where the team was most active.
Okay, we put a lot of work mainly on the surface. I think,
Yes.
as you mentioned, it is reflected on that. Unfortunately, we didn't have a large but an enough budget to explore more on the microfluidic systems.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why we had to go for the simplest way possible in that sense. And that's why we also put more effort on developing a novel surface that has not been, there is no other surface like ours in the literature
Yes.
for creatinine.
Yes,
So
yes, I have seen.
I would say that's the main innovation aspect on our biosensor.
Okay, so I shoot with another question. So you said an app was developed, and the app is on a PC, and it was planned to put it on a mobile phone or to tablet or something.
I don't know if you want to
you're
talk
working
about
on
it.
it, or?
Okay.
Thank you. So regarding that question, for the competition, we developed an interface on MATLAB, so it'll be easier for us in these states because we faced some issues in terms of logistics and also the app development. Our initial idea was to get the SensUs Smart and take advantage of these characteristics to create a smartphone app. But we have faced a few issues into receiving the equipment. So due to lack of time, unfortunately, we only was able to create the interface shown here. However, we plan to keep working on it, and even in the annex of the team results document, we can see the prototype with the kind of interface we hope to achieve in the future. Thank you.
I have a question. So, I mean, first of all, I really liked seeing this really nice calibration curve. Very impressive. So how do you do then, what's your idea about the reproducibility? So how do you clean the chip again? How do you remove the creatine? And did you also do, how did you do actually the calibration measurement? Did you then wash always for 10 minutes in between and then took the next step, or what's the plan?
Yeah, we did several tests. Initially for these calibration curves to guarantee that it corresponded to that concentration, we drop casted the sample. And then we did the analysis, and then we cleaned the surface with water and then nitrogen gas, yes, to dry the surface. And then again, we did another sample. But we did test continuously the samples with the whole system that we have with the microfluidics. So we introduce them, then take out with the pump, and then we wash them, and another one goes in, and then we stopped, waited for 4 minutes because we tested the time that the sensor took to stabilize, and then we measured the signal. And those ones were quite more dispersive. We did get a calibration curve, but we saw more dispersion between the samples. It wasn't that. It was a bit more dispersive, but not as much.
Okay, thank you.
Could we get your idea as to why that is?
Yes, and I think the main aspect is because I believe the tubes didn't go. The thing is, I think the cartridge doesn't get clean enough when we get the other sample. And now, if we get another sample, we try to clean it. We did, for instance, because the competition asked for 100 microliters for the sample. And so what we did is that we cleaned first with 50 microliters, and then we did the real sample that we were testing. But of course, like, it just takes one drop to change the whole concentration. And I think this might be an issue, so it would be more interesting, for instance, like, have 2 tubes and just continuously flowing and pushing everything away, because in our case, we couldn't do that continuous flow, which would have been very interesting to do.
Yeah, so my question is in the same direction. Yeah, so we talk about continuous monitoring. Yeah, so when you say the sensors need 4 minutes to stabilize, so what's your thoughts to improve, to go really towards real continuous monitoring?
Yes, I think the answer is what I was saying previously with the flow, because the thing with the aptamers is that you have a less strong binding, and so you can play with the reversibility. And so one of the cases is that you can heat the surface, but of course, if you give this to a patient and it's heating and cooling in their arm, it doesn't make sense. And the other thing is that with the flow, and since interstitial fluid also has ions, because one of the ways you can break intermolecular bonds is with ion, for instance, NOH, which is one of the examples that usually people use. We can break these bonds, for instance, now with creatinine, and continuously monitor. So the problem here is that we couldn't simulate that continuous fluid to verify if this was possible or not. But what we saw with ours is after at least 15 minutes, which maximum, you do see a change in the concept, like it stabilizes, and if you go back to another concentration, it goes back to the other signal. That's why we think it might be possible with continuous flow.
Okay. So the level of creatinine will also not change in seconds. Of course not. So
Yeah, exactly.
So more questions? Here. Then I shoot another one, the last one. So what was your rationale in choosing that specific assay? You know, choosing the aptamer, choosing the methylene blue as the electrochemical reporter. So what was your rationale? Why exactly this? All the other teams chose different approaches.
Yes, there were many things behind them. I think the most common recognition elements are usually enzymes and antibodies, because they are very selective. But in our case, we wanted, first, enzyme. The biggest problem is that you have side products, and it's hard to control that. Now, when you go to antibodies, the binding is too strong, so the reversibility would be harder. Now, with aptamers, you have intermolecular interaction. And in our case, we couldn't do that, but for instance, you can play also with the affinity with your analyte. And so you can play much more with the reversibility and the possibility of creating a continuous interface. So I think that was it. I don't know, I think you talk about something else. I don't know if I forgot. It was only about the recognition element.
The recognition and
the methylene blue.
The methylene blue. Yes,
yeah, I forgot about the methylene blue.
So this was from another publication? Or
No. We ideally wanted to do ferrocene, because the problem here is that the signal of methylene blue is really near the PBS and also of oxygen. So it was quite hard to find the signal. But ideally, we want ferrocene, but the company that we asked for the synthesis only had methylene blue, and so we went for methylene blue.
Okay. Okay.
Inside.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Can I Okay, so already the last pitch of this round is True Sense. I think just click some more, but yeah, you can figure it out. Good luck.
Do you have like the pointer? 哪个键是？
这个。
Hi, we're Team 2 Sensor. Today we're going to show you about our microneedle integrated biosensor. So we are utilizing two strategies. First one is the aptamer, and another one is the molecular imprinted polymers, MIP. And we're combining this with a microneedle array and a miniaturized electrochemical working station. And our data was transduced to our end user by our Bluetooth module. And for the biorecognition part, previous papers have reported the feasibility of electrochemical aptamer sensors. So we are carrying for the step further by using a computational biology assisted strategy by prediction of the binding site, and we do some trimming. Following the pipelines, do some trimming to form novel kinetics optimized aptamer sensors. But I was still finally we didn't adopt this strategy because although it shows some reusability, but still it was washing buffer needed. So we quit on this plan, and we moved step to the MIP strategy. As we know, MIP works like a synthetic antibody. So we cross-link the monomer and the creatinine together to form a polymer, and we elute the creatinine out of the polymer, so we can have the creatinine-specific cavities inside these MIP sensors. So it works like an antibody. And traditional MIP sensors will involve a use of redox active reporters, which was like methylene blue or potassium ferrocyanide, which is in solution, but which is not compatible to our intermediate fluid-free biosensor. So we carry this step further by using electrochemical polymerization to immobilize this solvent reporters onto the electrode surface so that we can eliminate the use of other fluid. And for the transduction part, because the MIP sensors have the cavities inside of the sensors, so the electrons can, from the solution, transfer to the electrode surface and have some other electrochemical signals. And in presence of creatinine, these cavities are blocked by the creatinine, so the electron transfer was hindered, so that you can see electrochemical signal reduction. But still, how can we realize a continuous biosensing using our MIP sensors? We adopt a novel electrochemical measurement, a composite electrochemical. In between each round of the electrochemical interrogation, we add a constant potential inside to the MIP sensors, because a constant potential will change the charge distribution and break the electrostatic interactions between MIP and creatinine. So it can repulse the creatinine outside of these creatinine-specific cavities, so we can realize the regeneration of our MIP sensors. So our experiment has showed enough, 15 rounds of regeneration of the MIP sensors.
And since we want to detect in the ISF, and we aim for the continuous monitoring, so actually microneedle provides an excellent solution. So we use 3 separate microneedle to form an electro array, which is fabricated by 3D printing and metal sputtering. And then the biorecognition material was modified on the microneedle. And then the whole electro array is connected with the custom designed electromedical chemical workstation. And we iterated the circuit 3 times and fully considered the need for wearable. And finally, we completed a circuit like this. We can see that the PCB holding on my hand is only about the size of a finger, which is really fitable for the continuous and wearable detection the purpose. And as for the onset detection competition, we have microfluidics, and we use COMSOL for simulation, and we can see from the picture our design can achieve the sample refreshment and continuous monitoring. And on the right side of the slide is our exploded view of the whole entire onset testing setups, and it's really enhanced the system stability. And thanks for your attention. That's we are open for the questions.
Thank you. We'll wait for the team to join us. Thank you.
Thank you.
That was an impressive amount of work, so you should be all very proud of what you've achieved so far. It's really great. I mean, because it was a lot of work, it was quite difficult sometimes to get into the details, so I'm just asking a few questions of details. And the first one is, you decided to use MIPS for the sensing, and I think you explained that creatinine was blocking electron transfer in the MIPS. Can you explain that a little bit more? Because I don't really understand how that works.
You mean the for this part?
Yes,
right?
exactly.
Because like we deposited an RAR layer, which is redox active layers. So if we without the creatinine, so you have cavities, so the electron can transfer to the RAR layer and make the oxidized RAR to transform into the reduced form of that. And in the creatinine-bounded type, we found with our experiment results show that indeed this reduction of the RAR molecules is the signal is reduced. So I'm not sure if that explains your right.
Maybe I can add in. As far as I understood, there's a surface which is doing that redox reaction, and the surface is blocked by the MIP. Yeah, so if there's no molecule bound, then the pores are more. And when you bind the molecules, there are less pores, and that's why the electrochemical signal goes down.
Thank you for explanation.
No, that's great. I mean, this is it sort of works as a nice story, but I'm puzzled by the scale of all of this. You know, an electron is very, very small, and the cavity of creatinine actually is quite big, right? And the polymer has lots of other cavities that the electrons can very easily go through. So I'm puzzled, but that's okay. We'll move on.
Okay, thank you.
So, let me also add. So first of all, I think your team can be really proud. Yeah, this was a lot of work. And I value, you know, the small PCB you just showed. This was a nice development, and also the software that you developed. And I think you also explored 2 choices of assay. So this was quite a bit of work. I also wonder, and this was where I downgraded a little bit. I wonder if really the technology works, because I'm working with colleagues with MIP sensors for years, and they try to tackle the surface-crafted MIPs that they are nicely on the surface, that they are growing on the surface, and so on. So how did you actually practically put the MIP on the electrode? How did you do that?
Oh, you mean the MIP deposition strategies? Well, the monomer we use is dopamine. Itself was from polydopamine. It was like an adhesive materials, and we are utilizing electropolymerization using the cyclic voltammetry to polymerize the dopamine onto the surface. And because the polydopamine itself is really adhesive, so we found that the MIP onto the surface is really strong, like adhesive thing.
Yeah, but typically with MIPS you have imprinted polymer and a non-imprinted polymer, and you do a differential approach. So and the imprinted polymer, you have then the target in, and you wash it out, and it can rebind. So how was this done? So
for the washing step, we are utilizing 2 washing steps. First one, we elute the creatinine out of the surface using like some ethanol, some solvent to extract the creatinine out of these polymers. And the next step, we use SDS, which is like surfactant. Because polydopamine was like a positively charged, and the SDS is negatively charged, so it can like some electrostatic interactions. And the SDS also serve as some anti-fouling strategies, because they can remove, make the proteins less bound to the surface of the MIP. I'm not sure. Okay.
Yeah. So my question is also a bit related. So to the MIP deposition. So. Did you use just a simple deposition, or you did the spin coating, or how was the deposition carried out to obtain a continuous layer and a very thin layer of the MIP on the electrode?
So maybe for this explains that much well. For the first, like we have tapped it onto an electrode surface, a gold electrode, and we tapped some like carbon nanomaterials onto the electrode surface, so like make it more rough or something, like make the MIPS more allowed to like to adhere onto that. And we are dipping this electrode into the monomer solution, and we carry out electropolymerization, so the MIPS will form onto the electrode surface, onto the working electrode.
Yeah, so because I was thinking about the needles, yeah, so then how would you go with the needles for the
and
pollution?
the needles also, actually the needle, we have like some backup slide in the end for this part. For this part, this was like a microneedle, and this SEM view of the microneedle, and this is with a really rough surface. So previous work we are all carried onto the spring printed the electrode. We haven't carried out onto the microneedle. We can't combine these two together because you can see that from this view, from this figure, it's not that conductive.
Okay. Yeah. Very good. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you very much. I would like to also ask a question about the microneedles. Yeah. Okay. How do you want to reuse the same MIPS with the help of the microneedle? Because the microneedle basically attracts with capillary forces your fluid from your body, basically the interstitial fluid, into the chip. And that's basically a one-step approach. And then you have your... So how are you able to continuously measure? Because you can, of course, wash it in the lab, but...
Okay. So first for the continuous measuring, we have like a composite electrochemical strategy to regenerate the sensor itself. And for the microneedle, because the material we choose is resin, so like it's not that hydrophilic, it will extract that. We assume that it was like just a electrode surface that can insert into your skin. So like it won't like extract and drag the fluid out to the microneedle inside. It just reacts onto the surface of the microneedle.
But how do you then do a next measurement? Do you do it once?
And for this, like you can see at this year we have like a company between each. This was just a one round measurement for the first assay and for the second assay. We have a constant potential at which is this regeneration step.
So you electrically regenerate. I understand that correctly. But then basically you get a buildup of creatinine in your MIPS for different measurements for each other, or not? Do I not understand that correctly?
Where does the creatinine go?
Yeah. We assume that it got reports from the MIP surface and into the solution. But I'm not sure what gets into the solution and it can diffuse it to that.
But where's the solution? Because you have the microneedle and that basically transfers your creatinine to the chip surface. There's apparently some solution, but it's not cleaned. It's not going anywhere. It's only a one-time use, or not? Well, maybe I'm misunderstanding, but...
Yeah, maybe that depends onto the circulation of the intermediate, the interstitial fluid in circulation of yourself. So we can like maybe...
but okay. So you think there's a continuous connection between the interstitial fluid in your body, but then you are relying on diffusion through the microneedles or something, because there are no capillary forces anymore. Because you made already the connection.
Yeah, we made already, because like we assume like if you are wearable microneedle arrays, the test between like 2 times test, like, not that close, because like for example you test once and after the 1 hour then you test twice, right? For the 1 hour time interval, there are some circulations, and the creatinine inside of your near the electrode surface, it was was a novel creatinine, and so at this we have like some for this part, and we have like the target absorption part. It's not relying on capillary forces. It was just like you have cavities, so creatinine can bound into that, but we can also like make it unbound using the electrochemical ways.
Yeah, okay, but I understand that you have an exchange. That's what you're counting on. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, very last, not so serious question. So you are the only team working with microneedles. So the only team which developed the microneedles.
Yeah.
Anybody of you was brave enough to test on yourself?
Uh-huh.
Does it hurt?
Yeah, we didn't dare that because like I have carried out some autoclave or something like I will not. It's not
No,
safe.
nobody
probably.
tested. Okay.
Yeah.
I would be careful.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, that was the last pitch of this round. Thank you all for your attention. And I think now we have a break, and then after the break is another round of pitches. So, thank you, teams.